Well, joining me now are oil and gas experts Ademola Adigun and petroleum engineer and public policy analyst Dr. Abubakar Alkali. Gentlemen, good to see you both and thanks for your time. Not too good a time for us as a country. Just when Nigeria thought we were getting on winning ways with oil availability, production, and so much in the sector, now this. Now, let's start with you, Ademola Adigun, and perhaps going through all of this back and forth, the NMDPRA, Dangote Refinery, and some other players were shell-shocked by what's been playing out. What do you think is going on?
Honestly, I think this is good for Nigeria. Yeah, it is, in the sense that, look, we're evolving. We're evolving. The NMDPRA is a creation of law. It's about 2.5 years old in real terms, maybe 1 year in real operational terms. Dangote is doing something marvelous by investing a lot of money to refinery in Nigeria. So when these things happen, there'll be what we call a stress test. This is part of stress test. So I think it's part of those time when we would check laws, we'll test regulatory capacity, we'll check the investment climate, and what it leads to is we develop new learnings and new methods of ensuring the mistakes we make this time around, we don't make them again. So there are mistakes being made now, but we're all learning from it.
So I don't know how much of a learning process this will mean for us, Alkali. This is something that we've had these conversations before, and we thought that we were already at the point where Nigerians will be reaping the good of this well thought out, as it were, plan for Nigerians. But the oil and gas, Nigeria's NMDPRA, now NUPRC, and Dangote Refinery, and the talk of substandard petroleum product by refineries in Nigeria. What do you make of this?
Yeah, to be honest, I think I'm not sure if I will wholeheartedly say it is good for Nigeria. I think at this point, of the growth and development of the oil and gas industry in the country, we should have past this, stage, this level. You would expect that an indigenous investor, a major investor like Dangote, and the regulators and the authorities would, find a common front on these knotty issues. Yeah. Okay, you really wouldn't expect that, issues like this that could have been resolved in-house, between the parties. After all, it's, the same regulatory agencies, the same Dangote, who is a Nigerian, these are Nigerian authorities. You would expect that, this issue wouldn't have been blown out of proportion as to go to the media or to turn into a media war. But that said, I think, it is very critical for investment in the sector, for stability of the sector, that Dangote and the NNPC and the NMDPRA, and NUPRC come together to find a common front. I think the major issue there is about supply. Dangote is, looking for supply, for consistent supply, for reliable supply, and it doesn't appear as if he's going to get that from the NNPC from Nigeria. Okay, so he had to now open new frontiers of supply. Okay, and that really brought in a lot of pressure, on the part of Dangote. And I think at some point, there was a disagreement. You remember, initially there was a 30% share of the NNPC. 20%, thank you. In the arrangement, Dangote Refinery. And we woke up, I think a week or two ago, to hear Dangote himself, saying that that share has dropped to 7.2%. I'm not sure if there was proper reconciliation of that, that brought us down to that 7.2. And what I made of that was that, Dangote is trying to dislink completely, from the Nigerian supply chain. I mean, in terms of crude oil supply, he wants to dislink completely. Because it appears, as I said, the NNPC cannot guarantee him reliable supply of crude oil. Okay, so let him just be sure of where he's going before it gets really busy for him. Okay, when he starts, when the refined products, PMS particularly, petrol starts flowing out. So he has now opened up new channels of supply abroad. Of course, that has a telling effect because you are now going to say, okay, look, the price of this petrol, despite the fact that we all said, hooray, Dangote is here, the refinery is here. The price of petrol may not come down. Yes, Dangote's, startup of, petrol particularly, rolling out petrol will not lead to a price crash because he's importing this abroad. He's importing his products abroad, and that really has a but I think, as I said, the altercation between these parties, Dangote and the regulators and NNPC on the other, even has the potential to, repel investors.
Let me bring in Ademola. Listening to both of you and looking at what's at play at the moment, correct us if we're wrong, because there's some form of business you put in place and you're giving some form of holiday to monopolize, or that's monopoly or oligopoly, to monopolize that system for a certain period so that you can actually recoup what has been so invested. So how is it that at this point in time, the government that once had a 20% stake in Dangote refinery is singing a different song, to the extent that crude supply, first we woke up with a crude supply story, which was actually termed a rumor, and now we're getting to see in the public the NMDPRA openly saying that, the quality of petroleum product coming from the refinery is substandard. What kind of business, since you've always been in the oil and gas sector, what kind of politics do you think is at play in the oil sector at the moment?
Let me start by dispelling some misinformation.
By all means.
First of all, it's not about getting crude from Nigeria or from America that determines the price of petrol. Nope. That's one of the problems we have. Nigerians have an entitlement sense and mentality across. Crude is not the only factor that determines the cost of a product. Products are determined by two factors: the international price of the product and the exchange rate. So it doesn't matter whether the crude is in my backyard or whether it's bringing from America. Transport costs are negligible. That's why the international price for products around the world, whether we're importing or producing locally, it doesn't matter. And if we're producing locally today, I can tell you, there is no way we can produce at the rumors we see. Part of the challenge is these rumors. Secondly, let's talk about crude supply. I said it elsewhere. Everybody who goes into a business must make sure he has a supply chain guaranteed. Modular refineries in Nigeria have supply chain guaranteed. Arador, for instance, has its own marginal refinery that supplies it with crude, and it produces diesel. Watersmith has. Everybody has. Now, Dangote refinery is so large that even Nigeria's total ownership output can't supply it.
But is there any kind of supply at the moment going to Dangote refinery from the Nigerian?
Now, I'm giving the background to it. Look, Nigeria didn't get to this position in one day. Nigeria today, you heard them before we came on board, we're now at 1.5 million barrels with condensate. Without that, we're probably at 1.3. Of that 1.3, Nigeria's share of that crude is less than 800,000 barrels. Every crude in Nigeria doesn't belong to Nigeria. People don't get that fact. There are investors who have invested in different mining contracts in Nigeria. The PSCs, the joint ventures, the service contract, the risk entrepreneurs, all of them take their crude from that what is produced globally. Now, Nigeria, if Nigeria puts its production to 2.1 million barrels, then we'll have more crude to give to everybody that wants. Look, the product refinery is coming on stream in August. We have to give it crude as well. So we don't have enough crude to give. That is why all theft is a big issue. And that's why every government, since Buhari has talked about theft, we're losing 400,000 barrels a day. That 400,000 barrels...
That still hasn't answered my question.
Is there any supply now?
Yes, is there any supply?
Let me tell you why I can't answer the question. Not because I don't know, and I don't want to say I know. The agreement with Dangote and NNPC, I'm not party to it. What I heard is that NNPC was to give it 300,000 barrels per day. But in the course of this 1 year before the finals, the finals will take off 2019. Remember that? And it kept on shifting dates, which is natural. Now you now have NNPC's crude itself impaired. We bought 90,000 barrels per day for the Gazelle deal. Remember the money we took from Afrexim? We're doing another one to raise more money for NNPC. We have money for domestic refining, which we're using to bring in petrol. So the problem is that where is that crude to give anybody? Now, Dangote needs crude, and it can get crude from anywhere. The refinery can take over 11 variants of crude. It can take from Nigeria, it can take from America, it can take from Venezuela. So the refinery is built to accommodate different crude. So that isn't the problem. And then, as per the agreement of 7.2% and co, this happens in business. We borrowed money for that investment. We don't have anything. People forget that NNPC is broke. I don't want to say that again. That $7.2 million was borrowed. I mean, $1.58 billion was borrowed to invest in Dangote. So Dangote is doing what it should do, and it's a business that should all succeed. But when you talk about giving him monopoly, which is a question you said earlier on, you don't do that in business. There's an energy risk in monopolies. Before Dangote came on board,
we're talking about when you have a startup, when you have a single business.
Yes.
So that's a business model. We know that they are in the books, and every country does that. So, but you fail to tell us if NNPC has been giving Dangote crude, irrespective of what you have from your backyard. So, you should be able to give crude to a refinery that is willing to buy. If that refinery is willing to buy, and Dangote, through the statement, has shown that he's willing to buy.
So why do you think NNPC...
So I'll come back to you. Do you think that we have, what's at play here in Nigeria has to do with some kind of setback that we've always witnessed? Call them some kind of cabal, people or some set of people who have held Nigeria down to ensure that no refinery takes off in Nigeria. Because just when we thought that one is here, we're having a big problem back and forth with the authorities.
Yeah, I think looking at the history of the industry, you can't help but get your mind around this allegation that a cabal, a cartel, is trying to stop Dangote from operating or starting its operations, as the case may be. But I think, to be honest, I don't think there is much of a cabal here, at least at this point. I think what is simply playing out is that, there has not been that, there is a kind of mistrust between these parties, There is something that Dangote wanted, and you see, I keep saying this, the Nigerian regulators, these are indigenous investors. We're at a very critical stage in the industry now. We are even hoping that there will be some stability in the downstream with the coming of Dangote. But we have this problem. So I feel that the regulators have an obligation, if you ask me, have an obligation to ensure that Dangote refinery is successful, and not just that. If you have this kind of stability, if you have this kind of support, and Dangote is getting the kind of support that he needs from these regulators, then you also have this, going to the investors themselves. This is something that could potentially attract the investors. So for now, to answer your question directly, there is no cartel. It's just a merger agreement. Dangote wanted something from NNPC, from the regulators. NNPC is not giving that to Dangote, which I still insist revolves around crude oil supply. But then again, also, it raises a lot of question. One is that, you see, there was the direct sales and direct purchase agreement, isn't it? The DSDP, okay, before May 29th last year, crude oil swap. And NNPC was using 445,000 barrels for the projected 64 million liters of petrol. And DSDP was stopped, isn't it? DSDP was stopped last year, yes. So if the SDP was really operating, then where is the 445,000? This could have been the, you know, the icing on the cake that would have solved this problem. 445,000
Let
barrels.
me bring in Ademola. I like to stay on the issues because sometimes when we make it look like an octopussy affair, we lose track of this. And it comes back to the man who is the petroleum minister, our dear own president. Shouldn't he wade in at this point in time? Because we're talking about a country that has lost its refineries for decades. We're talking about a country that the people are so pained and they've been talking about how to revamp refineries. And we're talking about a country where refineries were sold, reversed, and nothing has happened. We're talking about a country that has been gifted a refinery at last. Yes, privately owned. What should Nigeria be doing to ensure? Yeah, I see you shake your head, but again, no, wait, hold on.
Okay.
Let me land on this. What should Nigeria be doing to ensure that a private concern owned by a private citizen survives, which ultimately taking the pain out of what Nigerians are going through at the moment?
So, okay, so let me ask you a question. And this is not mistake. I like to put facts on the table. One of the problems in Nigeria we have is sentiments. And then there's information. Dangote is an export refinery. Let me explain that. Dangote is an export-free zone. Whenever Dangote produces anything, Nigeria will buy from it in dollars. It's no different from us from importing. Let me put that fact technically.
We're out of time. We're out of time, but I want to say, I want to give you time to say this in a minute.
Yes.
You still have not answered. Should the president weigh in on this?
Why do you think there's a meeting between the minister and Dangote are asking them to cheat parties? They have waded in. He has waded in.
So what do you expect to
see?
see?
What I want to make is this. We should disassociate people and personality from issues. See, if this was looked at this in a simple way, if this was the Nigerian breweries and NAFDAC, would that sentiment all come in? Dangote is a businessman and he's doing very, very well. NDPRA is a question of government, a government-created authority and regulator. The regulator is to protect us. And it's not a business refinery. The NMD doesn't have a refinery. Whatever is happening is what he said. Misunderstanding, assumptions that are wrong, technical issues.
Well, it's a fine place for us to live. It's the same NMDPR that failed Nigerians when they imported fuel that cost a lot of people everything in this country. Is now saying that without moving, they have actually done something about the Dangote refinery. We'll stay on this. I like the smile on your face, but again, it goes beyond what we're discussing now. We're out of time. We'd like to thank you for your time. Ademola, Adigun, and Abubakar Alkali, many thanks for your time coming on Newsline.